Hey guys, this is a super thanks video. If you want to be in next week's video, you can hit the super thanks button below this video or any of my videos. You can ask me about any of the series I'm currently following on the channel. I'm also going to be going into spoilers for any series I'm going to be talking about. Do you think Blast is future Garou? So this is a super thanks from someone whose name I don't know how to say. I don't even think I can begin to even try to say it, but it looks Russian, so thank you, comrade, for the super thanks. So I checked out this short that you have linked, and I agree with at least what he was saying about God probably being behind the alien seer that Boros saw. But then the end of that brought in the question of, is Blast Garou from the future, because they both have the same scar. So this is something that's been talked about the last couple months, actually, ever since the whole time travel stuff was introduced into the series. So let me give my thoughts on this. So like when you first hear this, you think like, wait, Blast Garou from the future, that kind of sounds exciting and cool. Wait, does that work? And then you see that they both have the same, scar across their face. It's like, that's interesting. Why do they both have that? And then later on, we find out that Garou eventually becomes the avatar of God, gains all of these cosmic abilities and whatnot, and then is eventually killed by God for teaching Saitama how to go back in time using those cosmic abilities. So it makes you wonder, like, did that Garou survive and then he became Blast somehow? Because I guess that would explain Blast having, his cosmic abilities, or his abilities to manipulate space-time, as Sitch said. And that is one theory, but to be honest, I just don't think Blast is Garou or Garou is Blast. Yes, they both have the same scar, and it's very interesting, but I think it's more so just a repeated design, possibly, because we saw that just 2 years ago, Blast didn't have that scar across his face. And also just considering that they're existing in the same time, and Blast has no recollection of Saitama, which he would if he was Garou. So I just don't think Blast is Garou. I would more so prefer it if they're just their own separate characters, but I'll just say that the scar across the face is compelling, but it's just a coincidence, I suppose. SJE747 asks, earlier on in the series, Gojo says that eventually Sukuna's techniques will bleed into Yuji and that he'll be able to use his techniques, but that hasn't been touched on or alluded to ever since. Do you think that idea got scrapped, or it still might happen? So yeah, I do think it's still going to happen. I've been waiting for it, actually. It's still been in the back of my mind. But in chapter 12, Gojo tells Yuji that in due time, your body will learn Sukuna's curse technique. And I think that's probably going to be the twist there, because maybe it's going to be revealed that like cleave and dismantle aren't Sukuna's innate abilities, and that maybe his innate ability is more like a Kotsu's or something, where he can take other people's abilities, and that might be the twist. Like Yuji gets that ability and then he could just copy other curse techniques. If not, then he just gets cleave and dismantle, which is also cool. But I do think Yuji is definitely going to get a technique from Sukuna eventually. That'll be like his next big power up, probably. But first, guys, let's talk about GamerSup's Black Friday end of season 3 sale, because orders over $50 will come with a free waifu cup, and you can actually pick up the waifu cup that just dropped. This is the 12th of season 3, the girl next door. This is probably my favorite design so far. I really love the pink and blue up here, very aesthetic. But they also have the limited edition waifu beanie, this amazing season 3 hoodie. Like, I love this thing so much, and of course the girl next door tee that always comes with the new waifu cup launches. So guys, check out my link in the description or use code BIGZ at checkout. That way you're going to get 10% off your purchase. Thanks, guys. Christopher Massey says thank you. Hey, thank you for the super thanks, Chris. Overhaul Premium asks, how do you think Monkey D. Dragon fights? Recently, I warmed up to the idea of him using Dragon Claw like Sabo, as well as Devil Fruit of some sort. So yeah, I do think that he probably has a Dragon Claw. He probably invented that, and that's how Sabo learned that move. But as for his Devil Fruit, he either has like the wind or air Logia, or some kind of mythical Zoan that gives him control over the wind or the air. One or the other, and he's probably a beast. I mean, Vegapunk said that he was a post-war in the flashback that we got in 1066, but maybe that means he's a pacifist, maybe that doesn't, but I have to assume that he's like a mega powerhouse, right? In order for him to be the world's most wanted man, aside from just being a part of the Revolutionary Army, of course. Saitama says, big fan of your work. Hey, thank you, Saitama. I appreciate the super thanks. My question is, after season 1 of the anime of Chainsaw Man, could you also review the manga? So yeah, I am going to do that for sure. Like minimum once season 1 of the anime is over, I'm going to be going into manga, but I might even start covering the Chainsaw manga before the anime wraps up. I'm not sure, but manga coverage definitely coming soon. Mob Safar asks, a longtime viewer since 2018. Hey, thank you for the long time viewing and super thanks, Mob. How would you rewrite Dragon Ball's power scaling? It's gotten completely absurd with every character who matches God, Goku, or above being scaled to universal level without any feats, and the reason people give to justify the lack of feats is ki control. So yeah, I get totally what you're saying, and I really don't think it can be fixed at this point. They can only really try to continue what they've been doing? Trying to act like every little move that Goku or the others do just won't completely destroy the galaxy or the universe. Because it's just gotten to that point where we just have to continually just suspend our disbelief and just accept that all of these characters are universe busters, but are still fighting like if only they're just planet busters. Like, the damage is just too far gone. You'd have to reboot the entire series at this point. Sandpaper asks, I think God is an all-powerful monster who rose to power and claimed the throne of God, the real God who exists outside of all the universes in reality. He sees what's happening to his universe, creates a version of himself with no memory, an ordinary, easily overlooked human with the power of a god. It would be interesting if Saitama was actually God incarnated in the human flesh to remind the monsters that there will always be someone more powerful. So I've seen a theory like this a few times, like Saitama being God or some version of him, and then he also lost his memory. Possible, of course, but I just don't see one writing the story this way ultimately. I think it's gonna just come down to Saitama just being a normal person, just like what Dr. Gina says about him in chapter 86. Could be wrong, but I just think he won't have any ties to God or any kind of crazy special backstory at all, to be honest. Eric Asher asks, in my opinion, there are the top 10 strongest heroes in the Hero Association from A, B, and C class, including manga and webcomic. 1 Saitama, 2 Sweet Mask, 3 Moomin Rider. Yeah, I guess you're going off of the power suit, and I suppose that would put him at 3. 4 Suiko, 5 Gear Spur. So I don't know about Suiko and Gear Spur being stronger than Comics Disciples that you have listed below them. Suiko really hasn't tested herself that much. She's only really gone against G6 or whatever that robot was, Machine God Mirror, I think. So I would put her behind the Atomic Trio for now. Gear Spur, he seems to be very situational at this point. You know, with the dragon level power that he showed against Neon, that was kind of just like a one and done thing. So until he can consistently pull off that type of power, maybe don't put him in the top 10 for now, but I mean, just that one feat of power easily puts him in there. And then at number 10, you have Ibuki. I think that's solid. 50 Quarters asks, hey Z, do you think that Dragon Temple and the altar are related and that there's a world beneath the earth? Subterraneans, hollow earth theory maybe? So I don't think there's a world beneath the earth. I think like it emerging from the ocean means that it was like down there, because in chapter 119 of the webcomic, when Amai Mask is like telling Saitama about the history of the world, he says that like after a bunch of world wars, the earth continued to erode and increase in environmental toxicity, rapid climate change, and rise in sea level gave birth to a large number of harmful life forms, forcing humanity to abandon much of the landmass, migrating and reestablishing themselves in the middle of the supercontinent. So I think that's like probably what happened in the manga as well. And like the cool Dragon Temple was originally above the surface, but you know, due to what happened, rise at sea level, it just went under. Along with probably a few other crazy landmarks. David Cherame asks, hey Zhoniin, you're the reason I got into My Hero. Hey, I'm happy I was able to show you the series, David, and I really appreciate the super thanks. Thank you. Question, do you think Deku's individual quirks will have awakenings? For example, Float is able to levitate multiple people, and Danger Sense would see enemies' weak spots. So to be honest, I didn't even really think about them getting awakenings, because I just assumed they were already getting buffed from being reinstituted into One for All, because you know that made them stronger than what they originally were anyway. But if all of them could get awakenings on top of that, that would be insane. That actually seems possible now, because I do think Izuku is going to pass out soon due to using Gear Shift for like 5 minutes. But man, if all of his individual quirks do awaken, that would really push him to the final level, where I think that he would be able to defeat, in theory, full powered All for One / Shigaraki. I'd actually really like to see that. And I think you're spot on with what those 2 awakenings could be for sure. That one guy who watches you when you sleep, and then there's more, asks, thoughts on Garou joining the heroes at the end of the manga? I thought it was kind of disappointing, and I much preferred Garou at the end of the webcomic becoming a lost loner outcast. So I think that will probably stay that way in the webcomic. Like eventually Garou will team up with everyone to take on God's forces, and I do think that's going to happen in the manga as well. It's just that Garou in the manga is less introverted than Garou in the webcomic, and one's just trying to build him up to be, you know, a big likable character, essentially, or at least I think that's the way that he's going with him. Ultimately, he will join the heroes at the end, maybe even a little sooner than that. I don't think he'll become like an official hero, like he'll join the S-Class or the Hero Association or whatever, but he definitely will be fighting alongside them, possibly in like the last arc, when like God finally has his army or whatever he's going to do. Ryan Cito says thanks. Hey, thank you for the super thanks, Ryan. T-Bird says love the content. Hey, thank you, T-Bird. Appreciate your super thanks as well. Assassin X Rated asks, what would Mob and Dimple disaster levels be? I haven't finished Mob Psycho yet. I'm on the last couple episodes, so I haven't gotten to the God Dimple stuff yet, but I'm very close. As for just Mob in general, at least the peak of the power that I've seen from him, he would definitely be above Dragon and One Punch Man. I don't know if he would necessarily be God level. And I think if you search enough, you'll find that one One did have a comment on like who would win between Mob and Tatsumaki. And he said he doesn't know, but when Mob gets serious, it's up for debate. Or I don't know, he says something like that. But they would be pretty comparable in the One Punch Man world for sure. Luke McLean asks, do you think we'll eventually see Gojo versus Sukuna? So yes, I have faith that we're going to see this. And it might not be as competitive as we thought it was going to be. Sukuna might be way too powerful at that point in the story. Once Gojo gets released from the prison realm, I assume, like he'll be, you know, full 20 fingers and then whatever else. And he might legitimately beat like Gojo cleanly, possibly. But there is a chance we never see that fight either, but I just feel like Gege wouldn't do that to us, and he has been setting it up since the beginning. Notch Piano asks, do you think Blast knows about Saitama's power or is clueless at the other heroes? So right now it doesn't seem like he's really aware of Saitama's power. I think he knows that Saitama's special, possibly, but I don't think he knows that he's the one above all yet. At least not current Blast. I mean, the Blast from the future technically knows about Saitama, but, you know, we're no longer following that timeline. Keith Bennett asks, do you think Kenjaku could be holding different curse techniques of all of his previous hosts? So that's a great possibility, too. I didn't talk about that in my spoilers video, but I'll probably go over that in the review on Sunday. But yeah, it is possible that when he hops from body to body, he like retains their DNA or retains whatever that you need for their curse technique, and then he just has, which would kind of be crazy. But I mean, it makes sense if what Tsukumo said about him having 3 or 4 curse techniques is true. Meatwad asks, hey, longtime watcher here. Hey, thank you for the super thanks, Meatwad, and your continued support. I was rereading the bonus chapter Eyewitness, and there's a part where the Hero Association worker says that Atomic Samurai, Pig God, Metal Bat, and Tank Top Master were on the way to fight Vaccine Man. Do you think this team could have defeated him? So that's a great question, and I do remember reading that myself. And to be honest, I'm not really sure. Like, in theory, they could take him down, but I just don't know how they would react to Vaccine Man's, like, salvos of huge energy blasts, because they were crazy, at least just going off of how they were in the manga. So I think high diff, this team could probably take out Vaccine Man, but we never really got to see what his speed or durability or just him just not floating up in the air and throwing energy balls would be like. I mean, yeah, he got big and was going to like crush Saitama, but that plays more into this team's game. Like if he got big and tried to fight them like hand to hand, he would probably get dominated, but just sitting up in the air throwing energy blasts down on them, he'd probably have an easier time winning that way. Isaiah Wilson asks, I was just curious if the fight between Monster Garou, first form that fought Flashy Flash of Platinum S, and Tatsumaki at full power were to happen, what would the outcome be? So I think Tatsumaki could probably take that form of Garou. Wouldn't be easy for her, but I think she's shown more power than what he's shown in that fight, at least. I mean, yeah, he was crazy impressive in that fight and did some nutty things, but Tatsumaki has like more of a raw type of power aspect to her, especially against individuals like that, but it's obviously debatable and very subjective. So that's it for the video today, guys. Once again, thank you to everyone who gave me a super thanks, and if you guys would like to be in next week's video, again, just check out the super thanks button below this video, and if you liked it, give it a like and have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.